If you're over 40, it's not over. If your eyelids rose to another day, you still have time, but it is going to come down to you having to realize your purpose. You know what I'm saying? What is it that you want to go after? Make a goal, you know? And my video today is going to be about consistency because this has been on my mind lately. And the reason why it's been on my mind is because I haven't been consistent. So it's been on my mind. And I'm going to call myself out because that's what this channel's about. Um, it's about documenting my grind. And I fell off. I got a new job here recently and all this is just excuses. Don't get me wrong, I know this, but that's me calling myself out. But I've also got to realize that, and you need to too, that things in life are going to happen. That's life, you know. And if you want something bad enough, you have to remain consistent in order to get it, And that's exactly what this video is about, consistency. Um, but when it comes to purpose, that's what's going to give this relevance because what are you going to remain consistent toward? You've got to have a purpose that actually means something to you. And then on top of that, you need a why strong enough to drive you to stay consistent. You know what I mean? When that motivation runs out, because it will. It will. Don't rely on motivation because that can trick you sometimes. That's like, there's people waiting for the right time or or to be in the right mood. That's not going to happen, man. Life sometimes just doesn't work out like that. The stars and moons don't always align for everything to just be perfect, and there's no way to remain consistent on that. So you've got to put everything in place, have a plan. You know what I mean? But consistency is definitely one of those things that are key. And you may have heard this in other videos, but there's reasons why consistency is key. And I wrote myself a little outline here to keep me in check so that I don't stray too far away from topic. But first one is learning. When it comes to a technical standpoint, also a mental standpoint, you know what I'm saying? Like psychologically. First off, from a technical standpoint, if you have a purpose and you're remaining consistent, you're going to inevitably learn more along the way. You know what I'm saying? So you will be learning, your skills will be better. Same thing goes with a mindset shift. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things you need to realize, such as, say, time. You know, you can't wait for time just to make time for you to do what you're going to do. You need to make the time for what you're going to do, you know? Um, if you're over 40, your routines are probably pretty established. So things aren't going to make time. You need to make the time. If you notice on my channel, a lot of my shorts are when I'm at work. You know what I'm saying? I'll do that. I'll utilize that time when I have downtime, this or that. I know everybody's life is different, but I know some people can do that. When you get home, we have a tendency of telling ourselves, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, I've worked so hard, so I deserve this little nap, or I deserve to sit down and watch my favorite TV show or something like that. No, if you want something, you'll know that you'll take that time and put it towards working even more, you know. Um, I'm not here to give you no soft info because that's not how life works. You know what I'm saying? You need to, especially if you want to position yourself to only be doing that, you need to put in more now. A lot of people have a tendency of, I'm trailing a little bit here, but this is important. A lot of people have a tendency of looking down on their job, but man, when you have a positive attitude towards things, that's when you're grateful for what you have in life. That's when opportunities open. You don't see that shit when you're negative. When you're in a negative mindset, you don't see those opportunities that are laying right in front of you. But when you are staying positive, that is when you notice them. So, recognize that having a job is a positive thing in your position if you want more. Because first and foremost, man, you can't just not have a job. You need things to pay the bills. You know what I mean? You need to fund your equipment. And it paves the runway for you to build your empire. So, second thing I have on my list is a compound effect. When you remain consistent, it's a compounding effect. And I believe 100% that the majority of things in life run on an exponential framework. when what we do most in our life runs on a linear framework, which throws off our expectations, throws off our mindset. And what I mean by this is, take losing weight or getting ahead in life or building a business. It's all on an exponential framework. Working a regular job, it's on a linear framework. So you do this work over here, right? And you get this result. So that's what our expectations are set to. You do this and you get this. Everything else in life is set on a more exponential framework where you put in a shitload of work at first and you'll be doing, and you're not seeing any results. Now, there's things happening, there's things growing on under the surface, but you're not seeing them. And most people quit there. And then there's the second step where if you remain consistent enough at first, you start seeing a trickling results coming in. But then we're faced with another issue because a lot of the times when we start, if we stick with it long enough to see results trickle in, we tend to get comfortable and say, okay, well, this is working, so I can kind of slack off a little bit. No, that's when you keep going. But if you are someone who remains consistent through that, you start to see that the results come in a wave, almost opposite of what they were at first. That's that exponential framework. And almost everything else in life, trust me, because I've been on the street out there panhandling for half a gallon of vodka a day. I've flatlined more than 10 times in my life. I have lost everybody and everything in my life. And now I have a house. I have a roof over my head. I have a family, 6 beautiful grandkids. I have food in the refrigerator and a refrigerator to put it in. So you can't tell me, that I don't understand. And that's that exponential framework. And it just comes to realizing that and sticking with something long enough and remaining consistent long enough to learn these things. The next one in my outline is trust and reliability. The more you remain consistent, and this comes in a two-part as well. Self and that which is outside of yourself, that external. You know, First, the more consistent you are, the more you're like you see that, okay, well, I can do this. You know what I'm saying? I'm remaining consistent and it's a good feeling. So it helps you with that determination. You know what I'm saying? It helps back up what you do because you see that you're sticking with it. From an external standpoint, your audience, the people outside you, life outside you starts to see that you are a person to rely, that can be relied on because you remain consistent. Man, that's where I'm telling you, consistency is key when it comes to anything. The next thing on my list is systematization and flow or workflow overall. The more you remain consistent, the more you build your routine, the more you become systemized, the more you're building your systems. You know what I'm saying? And that's your workflow. Therefore, you can focus less time on trying to get things together and do this so that you can put everything in place and more on what it is that is getting you ahead you know what I'm saying? More what is getting you ahead. I'm starting to trip over my words, but yeah, you're building those systems. So less focus is on those things, just getting things together. You can focus on what it is, the steps that are going to continue to push you forward. And last on the list is the data driven refinement. The more you do, and this kind of relates to the first point, the more you do, the more you're able to see what's working and what's not you know and most of what you're going to learn is from the errors you do. That's why they say failing forward. You don't fail if you're failing forward, you only fail if you quit. But if you keep pushing forward, you're learning from those mistakes and you can get better. And that's what it is, man. Basically, it all depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to get ahead in life, it's the analytics of life. You know what I'm saying? If you're just building a YouTube channel, then it's the analytics in the back. It's going to tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, what you need to do to move forward. So, yeah. If you're over 40, it's not over. If your eyes have opened in the morning, then you still have time. Just find a purpose, something to go after. And I think I'm going to do more of these rants to where I just kind of flow. Less of what I was doing before, since I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable with the camera. So again, if this is your type of flow, this is what you're into. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you're over 40 and you're wanting more, but you don't know where to go. Man, subscribe. Any of that, just subscribe. Um, and I'll see you next time. It's Blaine signing off.